Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Thanks for joining me. This is Candace Marie with Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. I hope you guys are doing well. I am back at it with another video. It's going to be a little bit more of an astro musings, some of my kind of hot takes on the Saturn retrograde in Aquarius. We're going to be talking about how it's going to affect each and every one of the 12 signs. So if you stay tuned till the end of the video, I will be giving you that information. If you have not already subscribed to my channel, please click the button below so you're alerted as to when I'm coming out with new content. We've got about 4 videos coming out a week. Hopefully creating more. We've seen lots of new people on the channel, lots of new subscribers and people commenting. So we want to continue to see the channel grow. So big thank you. You can do that by also donating, or you can join my memberships, or you can join me on Saturday nights. Typically Saturday nights, it will not be Saturday this week, where I do my live readings. So check out all that information on my community tab. I'm always posting stuff there. Well, guys, you know, I've been actually really looking at this retrograde for a little while. I'm not really somebody, unless it's like a Venus or a Mercury or a Mars retrograde, I don't freak out and panic when outer planets retrograde, because I know it's going to be longer stretches of retrograde time. But this one, in my opinion, is actually really important. So we're going to talk about it today because Saturn is actually getting ready to turn retrograde here in just a couple days' time. It's going to be on June 25th. So obviously we know that Saturn has been retrograde, has been in Aquarius for the better part of the last several years, right? So since 2020, when we saw Saturn go in and out of the very late degrees of Capricorn and several times enter into Aquarius, then finally staying in December of 2020, it's been 2 years now of having this energy. So actually next year in the spring, Saturn is going to move into Pisces, and it's going to stay in Pisces for several years' time. My takeaway from this Saturn retrograde is becoming more so better aligned with our goals. And I think it's going to be interesting because this whole transit, in my opinion, is like a bit of a psych, where things are going to kind of let up and they're going to get easier, but it's only going to be an illusion. So I'm going to give you guys my 5 hot takes and tips also on this retrograde and how to navigate it. Well, the retrograde is going to start on June 5th, 2022, and we are going to see Saturn turn retrograde at 25 degrees and change of Aquarius. So obviously it's finally getting into like the third decan, which is really affecting us globally. You know, if we break down the concept of Saturn in general, it's about karma. It's about sometimes delays. You know, I always say Saturn will delay. Rarely does he deny. But we've definitely seen lots of very unusual transits that have kind of gone along with this Saturn transit. So obviously in the background, since last year, we've seen Saturn squaring off with Uranus and Taurus. And it's definitely brought this kind of need to pivot, or it's brought this kind of like, okay, we need to shift, we need to adjust, depending on what's going on. Now, Saturn rules time. Older people, older generations, and in the sign of Aquarius, it's about networking, friendships, goals, group movements, or group concepts, social restrictions or limitations. Aquarius, alongside Taurus and also Scorpio, do bring up the themes of finances. So definitely having the North and the South Node in Scorpio and Taurus, and those squares that we've seen between the transits in Aquarius, whether it's Saturn or the conjunctions we had to Saturn, has brought this kind of brutal awakening about what we have and what we don't have, and really trying in a very difficult kind of Saturnian way to align us with our goals, and also to make us more aware of who we're spending time with. Do we have friends that we can rely on? Do we have friends that share the same values? Are we working hard and really focusing on, you know, team or group efforts? Now, specifically, this retrograde is going to happen until about October 23rd, 2022, and Saturn will begin to station and go direct at 18 degrees. So if you have any planets from about 26 to about 17 degrees of Aquarius, you will be experiencing a Saturn conjunction. So If you have planets within those degrees, you're going to have the conjunction several times. So a planet, will conjunct a planet, and then it will retrograde, and then it will go direct over it again. So it brings up this like threefold storyline of needing to rise to the occasion in some situations. If you're an Aquarius sun, it can be realizing like some of your personal goals. It can also bring up themes revolving around solar figures in your life, like men, fathers, husbands, bosses, your career, your happiness, your independence. And sometimes it can be about some real difficult times, especially with Saturn, because Saturn can make you feel restricted, or it can make you feel like you have lower vitality if it's on your sun. If it's been going back and forth over your ascendant, that's also been difficult because it's happening in an angular house. So Saturn crossing your ascendant, it's a once in a 28 to 30 year period where there's this sense of having to level up. There's more responsibility. There's more that's falling on you. You may feel the stiffness with your body. There can be health ailments. There can also be big moves or just like big new commitments that you're making when it comes to your own personal goals in life. Very challenging because you're also having Uranus in your 4th house. So it's kind of like you versus family, independence versus the past, needing to kind of go out on your own. And the eclipses have really been kind of rocking you. So that will continue. We're going to continue to see that energy into July and August when planets move into the sign of Leo, and we'll see a grand fixed cross. If you're having Saturn going back and forth over your moon, that can be a very challenging time emotionally. Issues relating to aging mothers, property, anything in regards to your responsibility as a mother, or just maternal energies. Depression can sometimes come with that transit. And so, something I tell clients is that when you're in the midst of a Saturn transit, it can feel very difficult, very challenging, and it can kind of be hard to see the forest through the trees. But there is this turning point, and I have found that for me it was the retrograde. I have 4 planets that are conjunct Saturn. So for me, I'm extremely Saturnian. I have Saturn in opposition to Jupiter, so I feel like tough times have always taught me very valuable lessons that I then in turn go out and help teach other people about. So maybe I have like a different relationship with Saturn, but I feel like in so many ways, the turning point for some very pivotal Saturn retrogrades that I had in my life. Saturn retrograde over my ascendant materialized as me breaking off a relationship, and moving away. Saturn turning retrograde on my sun was this realization that I didn't want to keep doing what I was doing for a living, and that there was a time for me to really need to go full steam ahead and really focus on building what I was passionate about and what I enjoyed doing, which was astrology. Saturn going direct and also retrograde over my natal Saturn was a moment where I finally kind of picked myself up by the bootstraps, and I was like, no more, this has to stop. So where other retrogrades get a bad rap, I think this is going to be one that's going to be incredibly helpful for helping us integrate and really reflect and start making the changes and integrating the changes that we need to make, or reflecting on where we have been. Now, I've used this analogy a couple times, so sorry if you guys are hearing it again, but it's like the boss goes out of the office and goes on vacation for a week. And are you going to maintain your schedule, stay on task, get the job done? Or are you going to kind of screw off and order pizza and like party on the work desk and like check out early and hang out on your phone, that kind of stuff? This is the temptation that can come with a Saturn retrograde, because it can have the appearance of like, oh, okay, I can get comfortable. The pressure has kind of calmed down a little bit. Everything's good. I don't have to work as hard. I can scale back. So there can be this sense of us getting a little too comfortable. We can become a little like lackadaisical. We could delay things. We could go, oh, I'll do it later. I'll do it later. I don't have to move right now. I don't have to make the job change right now. This is fine. It's okay. Things got better. I think I can handle it. I can deal, And it's not that when Saturn goes direct, we're going to get our ass kicked. It's more that Saturn will retrograde back to 18 degrees, and it's going to reenact that Saturn-Uranus square where, wherever Uranus is in your chart, in Taurus, it's going to start acting very wildly, pushing Saturn in Aquarius to move forward. Part of that is because Saturn rules Aquarius, as does Uranus. So Saturn's very strong, but Uranus is saying, but you need to upgrade your values. We need to make changes in your money. We need to make changes in your spending habits. We need to make changes with food. The body needs to evolve. So there's going to be this friction that's very similar to what we saw all last year. It's not going to change. Okay, so keep that in mind. So June 5th, 2022, at 25 degrees, it'll retrograde all the way to October 23rd, 2022. It'll drop back down to 18 degrees. Now, who's going to feel this the most? Who's going to get hit the hardest other than these degrees in Aquarius? The fixed signs, okay? The fixed signs, especially if you are a Scorpio or a Taurus, Aquarius, or Leo rising, because these configurations are happening in your angular houses, which are very, very visible, okay? So your first house is the body for Aquarius rising, all that stuff. Fourth house is the home and the family unit and dynamic. That's for Scorpio rising. Seventh house is going to be relationships, marital partners, business partners. That's going to be for Leo rising. And the 10th house is going to be all about career and responsibility and anything in regards to that stuff. That's going to be Taurus rising. So that's where you're, on one hand, starting to reap the benefits and start really seeing the payoff if you've been working really hard, because, well, Saturn is direct. We want to be putting in that work. Now, some people would argue and they would say during the retrograde, you don't want to start new things. You don't want to start new businesses. You don't want to launch new things. I feel like if it's something that you've been building for some time and you're wanting to integrate some changes or you're wanting to make some tweaks, it's okay. Obviously, election astrology is the way to go. If you are wanting to pick the perfect date to launch a website or to publish a book, to move, to get married, this is why you consult astrologers, so that way you know what's going on. I'll tell you that even in the midst of this retrograde, there's some weird things that are going to happen. Like Saturn's going to go direct and it's going to be around 18 degrees. Right around the time at the end of October, Mars is going to go retrograde in Gemini, and it'll actually start coming into a trine with Saturn. So there's a need to kind of rework our direction or our energies, maybe our passions. But they will be in unison. So I think it's interesting that Saturn will kind of solidify and then Mars will kind of retrograde back, and we have to kind of reconfigure what we're putting energy into. Anyway, staying on Saturn. I want you guys to know that picking the appropriate date, if you absolutely must make some of these big changes, especially if you're a fixed sun, moon, or rising, is really an idea, like a good idea. So if that's something that you're struggling with, that's something that I offer on my website, so you can definitely check that out. You can just check the election astrology reading. Now, specifically, 18 degrees is a Virgo degree. If you follow step astrology, that's what I like to do. I'm a big fan of degree theory and Nicola Stanovich, the OG. I'm going to read to you a little bit about this out of this book and talk to you about the secrets of these specific degrees. Now, there's a lot of people that have speculated about the 18 degrees. You know, certainly there's something to be said about that. I mean, do I believe it's a diabolical degree? I don't know. My son's conjunct that degree. So, you know, I kind of look at that like, it could go one way or the other. But it's a Virgo degree, and specifically, it also, because it's at 18 of Aquarius, that's within the second decan, that has associations with Mercury. So it's going to be very much about, under the guise of Aquarius, communication. So I think it's like freedom of communication, freedom of speech, right? Limitation of freedom of speech, what we can say, what we can get out there, what is or is not being fact-checked, what is or is not being limited in a sense of what you can see on the internet. I think that's going to be the big theme. And what groups of people have to say and where we're feeling limited. I've seen a lot of people, when planets were going through these degrees, that were like, I'm done with Facebook. All the Facebook stuff was going on. They wanted to get out. Now for the 25 degrees, that's going to relate specifically to Aries, and that's very Aries. Okay, 25 is like Aries packing a punch. It's got associations with Venus under the third decan of Aquarius. So we kind of move from a Mercury to a Venus, and it's going to be more so, I think, about how we are sharing what we love with other people, how we're really focusing on that high vibration, raising the vibration, tuning into loving groups. I think a lot of us have actually learned that maybe part of it's been Saturn in Aquarius and just that theme of like, who are my friends? You know, where are my people? Where's my tribe? But I think a lot of people have been realizing that there's more than just romantic love, that there is a need for love for our community. There's a need to have platonic love. There's the love that we can have with a best friend. Love is not limited to just the physical romantic kind, and maybe perhaps where some of us have been so overly fixated on feeling lonely and isolated because we don't have romantic partners or spouses or boyfriends, girlfriends in our life. That there is this need to kind of connect with others and like really expand how we consider relationships in society. So especially like I think of like 2.5 years of, you know, pandemics and lockdowns and all that stuff, of people who like couldn't go out and socialize, people who were single, people who were not able to have physical, intimate relationships. And so the impact that that had on people, and then this realization that they needed to kind of fill in the gaps and still go and get love and support in other ways. So I think for many of us, it's really taught us that friendships are really important and that we need to be able to have solid friends and people that we can really kind of align with. A lot of my clients, myself included, it's just been a lot of like friendship clear out. And I don't know if it's just been growing up and getting older, or if it's just been more kind of a sense of being like not wanting to put up with the drama, you know, that could be part of it. But a lot of people have made some huge shifts and have made big sacrifices in their life when it comes to friendships because they wanted also to elevate and kind of rise up. So I don't know if some of you guys have had that experience. So I'm going to read to you a little bit from Nicola's book about 18 and 25. And I'm just going to give you some keywords just to think about, because these might be some things that are popping up. So I'm going to actually go backwards because it's going to start going retrograde at 25. So this will be the Aries degree. Some themes that you might see, or anything that has to do with like to construct, to build, anything in regards to construction. So maybe Saturn going retrograde is we're going to see delays with some of that stuff, especially if you're in that industry. You might notice there's just, you know, like slower traffic and all kinds of things locally because of what's going on. To produce, you know, factories, workshops. So obviously the Saturn Uranus squares, we've seen lots of delays in shipping and anything in regards to just exchanges around the world, things getting stuck on shipping containers, not being able to get into ports, and a real delay of being able to produce products. Soldiers, weapons, military, engineers, machines, to be brave, hardworking, industrious, head, the top of the nose, red, anything that has to do with flames, firemen. I've seen a lot, actually, I've seen several clients who have been involved in either unions, like nurses unions, police unions, firemen unions, that have been basically telling me they've had nothing but problems because they've been put in a position of being told that they either need to make decisions and they need to basically commit to certain choices in regards to their health, or they can no longer have a job or be involved in a union. And so I'm wondering, are we going to see the return of that? I think the Saturn in Aquarius is very union, but with the squares to Uranus is the constant fluctuating changes and things going on with the standards of health. Physical injuries, wounds, cuts, sheep, Germany, anything relating to German origin, anything that's spicy, sportsmen, muscular stuff, and leaders to be the first. So these are all Aries themes. So with Saturn retrograde, we can see the effects of any of these things kind of slowing down, or the karmic effects of some of this stuff. Now touching on the 18 degree, which, like I said, a lot of people, if you follow Nicola's work, he's always talking about that degree, that can be a really challenging degree. And these are the themes relating to this. To work, workplace, colleagues, workshop, the location of work, those who work for us, like employees, health, illness, health center, general practitioner, everything associated with health, food stores, cures, medical booklets, prescriptions, macrobiotics, healthy way of life, the service industry, customers, clients, and those who request services. And anybody who's renting, renters, vets, science, veterinarians, animals, to assess, analyze, step parents, clothes, aunts, uncles, stomach, tea, honey, beehives, and ants. So I know some of these things are kind of random, but oh my goodness. I think of like the shortages, and I'm wondering, like, is that going to affect, like health or dog food supplies and our ability to be able to get stuff for pets. Certainly the Saturn-Uranus squares was like, we go to work, we don't go to work. We work from home, we don't work from home. You know, people have jobs, they don't have jobs. I mean, it's been really, really difficult across the board. I think also like the service industry, customers, clients, you know, being able to go out to eat, being able to get a haircut, being able to get some of our beauty stuff done. These are all the service kind of Virgo type things. So whether or not your hairstylist is not able to service you because of mandates or, you know, not being able to like walk into a bar, go into a restaurant and have something to eat. I mean, we may see these things come back. I don't like saying that, but I have a feeling that there are certain things that have been put in place recently that when Saturn retrogrades, we're going to start to find that some limitations are going to kind of pop back up again. Also the connection that we see associated with like health cures, prescriptions, general practitioners, stuff like that makes me wonder. And renters' rights versus all of these landlords who have been in situations where people have not been able to pay their rent and possibly they have not even been able to evict them. I'm neutral in this situation. I get it. You know, was a renter for many, many, many years and can only imagine people being put in a situation where rents are outrageous and then not having a job or not being able to pay your bills. I mean, it's a really, really, really horrible situation. But by the same token, you've also got landlords who probably are gouging people and overcharging anyway, who are also not able to pay their bills because they're not getting rent. So it's just like we're going to see this like pile up of situations that might return again, unfortunately. Okay, so basically, you know, retrograde efforts that are being made during this time are likely to materialize as some physical or tangible results later this year when Saturn goes direct. So just know, just because the boss is away doesn't mean that we kind of screw off a little bit, okay? And Saturn retrogrades, you know, it usually spends about 4.5 months every year retrograde, so it's not very unusual. Something like around, I think, 35% or so of people have natal Saturn retrograde in their horoscope. And I think what's so great about the retrograde in itself is that, you know, it gives us the opportunity to kind of figure out where we need to apply ourselves more and like what is working. And by figuring it out during the retrograde, you won't repeat the same issue or you won't have the same limitations or the same setbacks as you did in the fall, you know, in this last year. All right. So, and you know, Saturn has this connection with karma and destiny. And I think that when Saturn goes retrograde, it's like some of these karmic themes become more obvious. So I think that it's allowing us to have the experience, if we do see those same issues pop up, to learn to become more disciplined, to refocus, to rethink, to re-aim. And it also gives us the opportunity to dump our karmic baggage. So that's great as well. Okay. So just keep in mind, like I said, later in the fall, Saturn will return to the Saturn-Uranus square. So you're going to see that friction that's going to push you. And that's really when the test is going to come to see if you have been kind of slacking, delaying, denying, not allowing yourself to commit further. And if you have some friction there, it's going to be a little bit more difficult because we're going to see the return of the Scorpio Taurus eclipses at the end of October and the beginning of November in Scorpio and Taurus. And we're going to see lots of like Uranus and Venus aspects in those eclipses. So my top 5 takeaways would be for this Saturn retrograde is give yourself credit where credit is due. Give yourself that pat on the back. It's okay to reflect back on how difficult things have been over this last year. Be focused on what goals you did achieve. Be focused on what you were able to achieve in a very short period of time. Like I said, I mean, I think back to when you know, Saturn was around 18 degrees. This was around mid-February, early March. What have you been working on since then? You know, what have you been building since then? What have you been putting together? What have you been committing a lot of time to? And it's been really challenging a lot of people, especially when it comes to making changes in their finances. I've seen so many clients across the board taking up new businesses, learning new things, going back to school, getting certifications. They've had to invest time or they've had to invest money into this and taking a gamble that it's going to end up paying off. I've seen so many people go into IT. I've seen so many people go into working independently for themselves or doing something in the health or wellness field. I've seen a lot of people want to learn astrology, want to become astrologers. So it's been a very interesting time, I think, with the Uranus kind of square, you know, configured into this, because it's requiring people to level up in ways that they may not have been ready for had life not put the pressure on them to really make that change. So give yourself credit where credit is due, okay? Give yourself that pat on the back where you have been doing well, and reflect. I was doing this last night. I was talking to my husband, and we were going back and forth about, you know, a couple things that we're working on. It's like a full-time business, creating content for YouTube, and it's something he's done for many years, but it's something that I've kind of like shied away from. And over the last year, you know, we were able to grow my channel. We went from 1,000 subscribers to over 5,000 in a year, get monetized, and also start getting to a point where we're not just making content, we're actually starting to be able to kind of pay ourselves back, which is it's a big deal for us, because it was taking a huge jump, really making the commitment, doing this full time together. And in spite of that, we were also able to launch his channel and do his work. And he does like stuff on crypto and finances, so he's doing that as well. And we started a podcast, and the podcast also was able to get monetized, and now we're getting paid for that. So it's like we took a leap of faith. You know, we decided to spend the time and invest in the resources and buy the cameras and the lights and all the things, and to be like, you know what, this is what we're going to do. We're going to make it work. It's going to happen. And just reflecting now that Saturn's getting ready to station, being like, wow, we did a lot in this last year. It's like, it feels really good and it feels really rewarding. And a lot of that is because of you guys, you know, because you guys comment and you post these videos, you share these videos. And I just want to say a big thank you for that. Number 2 would be don't slack off. Don't slow down. Don't get too comfortable. Even if you're going to feel the effects of Saturn retrograde, we're going to be like, okay, I think we're good. We can kind of coast now. Like, don't regress. There can be this tendency to regress, to kind of slow back or kind of kick back on our work. Many people are going to be like, we can travel again, we can do this, and we can do that. And I'm going to keep reminding you guys, do not drop the ball. Full steam ahead and don't slack. Keep reminding yourself of your goals. Keep looking at those timelines. Keep holding yourself accountable for hitting those mini timelines for whatever it is that you're focusing on, wherever Aquarius is in your chart. Don't slow down, even if it's like an optical illusion that, oh, so I can get used to this. It's like you're going to feel the pressure build up again in September, October, and November. Number 3 would be stay focused on the goal, right? Saturn's going to be in Aquarius, clear until next spring. I don't think it's going to go until about like April, May, into Pisces. So that should be your timeline. You know, when Saturn leaves a house, he always leaves a gift. And I've noticed this just tracking Saturn over really the last 14 years of my life. So when Saturn leaves whatever house that it's in and it goes into Pisces, it's going to be leaving you with a gift. There's going to be a valuable lesson that you're going to receive, and you're going to feel more solid and kind of stable and solidified in that part of your life. So it's important for you to really stay focused and stay on task until you get to next spring, and know that some of these things may take really until next spring to fully unfold. Number 4 would be hope for the best, but prepare for potential hard times. Because of the Saturn-Uranus square, I think that it's going to take a lot of people off guard when suddenly they have to pivot again and they have to shift back again. And in a way, the North Node in Taurus, and I think that Uranus is really going to be the next star of the show, right? From about the end of July all the way till November, then it's just like, okay, where is Taurus in our chart? So we can get so kind of thrown off guard with some of the shocking sudden changes and things that are going on in the Taurus area, that there can be this sense of being like, okay, I don't need to do that, I can do this, and we can get distracted. So prepare for things. You know, I think that we're going to see inflation continue to rise. We're going to continue to see issues also with interest rates. I feel like a lot of people who don't have fixed loans or fixed interest rates are about to kind of be in for a rude awakening when we get into the fall, and we realize that not only are prices increasing and inflation is staying around, but we're going to start to see the Fed kind of bring those numbers up. And that can be a marker for the rest of the world. So if this is going on here in the United States, other markets may kind of follow suit with that, because they have a tendency to look at what we're doing. And number 5 would be make elevation be your goal. Okay? Elevate. Remember that when we leave Capricorn and we've climbed the mountain and we get to the top, that's Aquarius. When we're looking down above everything, when we're at the top, realizing that we did it, it's that sense of satisfaction. Many of us won't get this until next year, but that doesn't mean that we get sidetracked or we lose sense of, it's not just about achieving that goal. It's about what we learned in the process, how we evolved, how we grew, right? Spiritually. Elevation and also our particular vibration is what we really want to be focusing on. Super high vibe, right? And it's high vibe when it comes to friendships. It's high vibe when it comes to the intentions that we're setting. Maybe we're working with vibration. Maybe we're working with frequencies. Maybe we're working with ascended masters, whatever, to be able to get to that level. So we have to keep bumping it up, bumping it up, bumping it up, okay? Those are my 5 takeaways. I want to touch on briefly for each and every one of you where this is taking place, just so you kind of get an idea. And then I'm going to tell you what house Saturn rules. Now, I will come back. We're going to do more videos. We're going to talk about the squares to Uranus because that's definitely going to be a theme. We're going to start feeling that heavy July, August, September. So I'm not going to include that in this video. I just really want to really pay homage to Saturn. Starting with Aries and Aries rising. So Saturn is going retrograde in your 11th house. This is going to be about your goals, and this is going to be about changes in friendships. There can be a sense of reevaluating your goals, especially when it comes to your professional goals or your career or your responsibility out in the world. Taurus and Taurus rising, you're going to be having Saturn go retrograde through your natal 10th house. This is going to be a wonderful time to reflect on just how hard you've been working, what you've been able to build and what you've been able to accomplish, some of your professional goals, and maybe this feeling of like slowing things down a little bit. But I think it's just because you're integrating and maybe building a team. That might be something that you're doing here. Gemini and Gemini rising, Saturn's going retrograde in your 9th house. It's a sister sign, so it's going to make positive aspects to your placements in Gemini. We could see delays going on with legal stuff, with in courses or certifications, travel setbacks, but it's a time to reflect and really think long and hard about what your beliefs are, how your beliefs are changing, and how you can align with the world and integrate a new philosophy into your life. For Cancer and Cancer rising, this is in your 8th house. There can be a time to reflect on joint resources, clear up any tax-related issues, money owed, anything in regards to borrowing. It might be easier to borrow, but it's also about reflecting on what you've changed and transformed and let go of. There can be really difficult things going on with psychological triggers relating to death, loss, or even friendships that you're having to work through, and you can clear some of this stuff up. For Leo and Leo rising, this is going through your 7th house, so it's going to be very active. Certainly, if there's been a lot of pressure or intensity in relationships or issues revolving around commitment, we can see that now you can kind of grow and you can actually come closer together with another person and start planning for long-term goals. But there can also be like a clearing out in relationship issues if that's been something that's been lingering. For Virgo and Virgo rising, this is Saturn going retrograde in your 6th house. This is a time to reevaluate your schedule, how much you give to other people, if your body can handle it, how your health is, if you're needing to clear up health issues. If you haven't been organizing your schedule in a way where you're making time for fun and making time for friendships, now you can make those shifts. For Libra and Libra rising, we've got Saturn going retrograde in Aquarius in your 5th house. It's a fellow sister sign, so it'll make positive aspects to your placements in Libra. Saturn going retrograde in the 5th is going to be about you learning how to balance fun time and work time. And there can be a let up of sorts where you feel like you're not having to work so hard to have fun. You may actually work harder during this time because Saturn in the 5th is like a little bit of a killjoy. There can be a sense of you feeling also like you can open up more, you can give love more, and maybe perhaps there are big things changing revolving around creative projects, dating, or children. For Scorpio and Scorpio rising, this is happening in your 4th house. Saturn's going retrograde in Aquarius. It's an angular house, so similar to the other fixed signs. This can be intense, but thankfully it's private. This is about reflecting and making changes in your home base. And where it makes sense to stop thinking about or talking about the past, where you can make peace with the past. Some of you guys are resisting moving. Some of you guys are wanting to kind of stay in one place and you're not wanting to sell your home, or you're really fixated on wanting to make a situation work as long as possible. Because Saturn has connections to your third, it can also be about reconnecting with family, talking to family, kind of hashing things out if there's been some miscommunications or issues in the past. For Sagittarius and Sag rising, this is Saturn retrograde in your third house. So this is all going to be about reflecting on your communication patterns. It can be less stern in terms of your thoughts and the way that you communicate with other people. Saturn going retrograde is going to have you thinking differently about your self-esteem, your money, and your resources, and what you can do. So there can be this letting up of what's been a really rigid kind of mindset that you've been sticking to recently. For Capricorn and Cap rising, Saturn's going retrograde in your natal second house, and this is important because Saturn is your chart ruler. So if you've been feeling the pressure of financial restriction, if you have been feeling like you have been doing nothing but making money and saving money, if you have been feeling like there's been a difficult time, that money is slipping through your hands or that you can't hold on to it, this is going to be a time where you can kind of reflect. Oddly enough, when Saturn goes retrograde, you might have like a moment where like money starts flowing again, and it's all about what you do with it. Take into consideration that it's all about how you spend your money, because Saturn's your ruler. It's all about what you are investing in. It's all about your natural talents as well. So just because things get a little bit easier doesn't mean that you don't continue to keep saving for a rainy day fund. For Aquarius and Aquarius rising, Saturn's going retrograde in your sign, which is, if you're a rising, it's going to be your first house. So this is going to be reassessing the boundaries that you've put out recently. If you have been feeling more independent, or that everything's falling on you, or that you have to make difficult decisions, this is going to let up a little bit. Do not let your guard down. Do not overestimate healing if you're still healing from a physical ailment. It's really important. There can also be a sense of you not feeling as depleted or as sad or depressed, if that's something that you've been feeling. You can have like a little bit of like a real kind of melancholy effect, you know, when you have Saturn on your ascendant, especially because it's your chart ruler and it rules the 12th house. So maybe you have felt like there's like this invisible kind of wall around you that's like kind of walling you off from other people, and it's going to kind of feel like that's coming down a little bit. Just be very cautious because of the angles and the things that are going on. You have to kind of still stick to a certain set of expectations that you have set for yourself, and don't let other people bully you or kind of cross your boundaries. And then we've got Pisces and Pisces rising. We've got Saturn going retrograde in your 12th. You know, this makes me feel like there can be a sense of reflecting on what is wrapping up and what's ending. You may be somebody who's experiencing endings in friendships, doing a lot of work privately in therapy. Maybe there is a sense of feeling like you need to get back out there and socialize a little bit because you've been disconnected with friends. Saturn retrograde here is a time to really reflect and ask yourself if it's time to kind of go back into a meditative practice, or just anything in regards to working kind of behind the scenes. I would say use this while you've got it, because it might really open things up for you socially, because Saturn rules your 11th house of friendships, and friends who have been missing might come back around and tell you where they've been. And you're preparing to really get everything together before Saturn goes into your sign next year, because then there's going to be a bigger commitment to your goals. So you might be kind of prepping things behind the scenes for that as well. I'm going to leave you guys with this. And I wanted to share this because somebody very near and dear to my heart actually gave this to me many years ago. My mentor, she's a Gemini, but she's an Aquarius rising. She gave me this book, A Guide for the Advanced Soul, a book of insight. Hold a problem in your mind, open this book and page, and there will be your answer. So she gave this to me, and she wrote on the inside cover. She actually gave it to me before I moved away from Los Angeles 2 years ago now. To Candace, this book has been one of my greatest guides in this strange path that we walk. I hope it will bring you the great guidance and comfort that it has always given me. Love always, Trish. I've kept this on my desk, and I've been pulling or just kind of cracking it open on a regular basis to be able to kind of better connect and get guidance for where I'm going in my life. And this is the one that I pulled up today. Is this it? Okay. Was it this? Oh my goodness. Now I'm like, was it that one? Now I'm going to overthink it. Ah! Just want to make sure. Sorry, give me 1 second because I want to make sure this was the one. Yeah, I think it was this one. Okay. This was the advice that I got for today. Dwell not in the past, use it to illustrate a point, then leave it behind. Nothing really matters except what you do in this instant of time. From this moment onward, you can be an entirely different person, filled with love and understanding, ready with an outstretched hand, uplifted and positive in every thought and deed. And I was like, oh my God. It's like literally, I mean, I didn't pull this until after I kind of made all the notes for my lecture today. I'll read it again. Dwell not in the past, use it to illustrate to a point, then leave it behind. Nothing really matters except what you do now in this instant of time, Saturn. From this moment onward, you can be an entirely different person, filled with love and understanding, ready with an outstretched hand, uplifted and positive in every thought and deed. This is by Eileen Caddy. I guess she has a book called God Spoke to Me. Elevate, you know? Something that somebody told me a long time ago when I was going through recovery was you have the opportunity every day to just start over. You know, every day is a new day. So if you just want to start over and not reflect on what's happened in the past, just focus on today, elevating today, right? What we're committing to today. So regardless of what's been happening, what you've been trying to kind of work through or overcome, realize that so much of this is about the vibration. If we can get into that vibration of, you know, rising and loving, especially because it's in a decan that's associated with Aquarius, right? We can get to the next few phases, but sometimes it requires group efforts. So keep that in mind. Let me know, where is this retrograde happening for you? And how have you been experiencing it so far? Especially if you have a fixed sign, like a rising or a sun at 18 or 25 degrees. I'd love your 2 cents on that. Because it's definitely been wild. My North Node's at 21 of Aquarius. My Sun and my Mercury's at 18 and 19. So it's been high adventure for me. But I feel like it's like the good kind of pressure, the kind of pressure that keeps grinding until I just finally give in and I'm like, okay, fine, I'll do it. So yeah, hopefully this is helpful. Good luck with the Saturn retrograde. We'll touch on it again, especially when we start seeing squares from Uranus and the eclipses later this year. I will leave this with you guys today. Happy Thursday, and I will see all of you guys very soon. Take care.